Hello, everyone. Welcome to another partner webinar between Revenova Highway, and joining us today is our mutual customers, excuse me, OpenRoad Global. My name is Mike Marut. I'm the marketing manager here at Revenova. Joining me today is Jessica Hale from Highway, Jessica Hibden from OpenRoad, and Jeff Meyer from OpenRoad. Before we get into the introductions, quick housekeeping item. If you have any questions throughout this webinar, please throw them in the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. The chat is not available for attendees, and that is by design. So if you have any questions, just throw them into the Q&A, and we will answer as many as we can throughout the webinar. Probably closer to the end, we're going to be opening it up to those questions. But if you have anything that comes up while we're talking, throw it in there. But without further ado, let's get into some intros. So Jessica Hale, let's start with you. Tell us, about what you do at Highway. Tell us about yourself a little bit.
Hi, thanks for having me. Yes, my name is Jessica Hale. I'm the VP of Customer Success here at Highway. And so my team works with our customers and is able to work with them, get them integrated, as well as help them utilize Highway and continue to evolve and work with them on figuring out solutions on how to continue to stop fraud throughout the load life cycle.
Great. And Jessica Hibden, let's go over to you. From Jessica to Jessica. Tell us about yourself a little bit, what you do at Open Road.
Of course. Hi, I'm Jessica Hibden. Happy to be here as well. I am the claims and compliance manager here at OpenRoad. So my team is in charge of reviewing the carriers and monitoring them and their risk bases and making sure that they're in compliant to haul loads for us here.
Awesome. And Jeff, last but certainly not least, tell us about yourself a little bit and what you do at Open Road.
Yeah, in the IT department, kind of, I guess my title is systems analyst, but I'm largely in charge of our Revenova software as our system administrator is what I'd say.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for being here today. I appreciate it. So for all of you who are attending today, we are talking about stopping freight fraud before it happens and fighting fraud from within your TMS. At Revenova, as a TMS provider, we partner with Highway to help our customers fight freight fraud as well as a handful of other things. Um, I've been really, really happy with our partnership with Highway, so we wanted to, make sure that everyone understands kind of what this partnership is truly like and how our customers, our mutual customers, are using this integration, this partnership to the fullest extent that it can. So first, let's start with you, Jessica Hale. Tell us, kind of what's happening with Highway these days, and start, we can start generally as well. What are some of the most common types of freight fraud? Freight fraud. My God, that's a tongue twister for me. That Highway is seeing these days.
No, that's a tongue twister for me sometimes too. I catch myself re-saying that over and again, so no worries. Yeah, there is a lot going on. I think over the last few years, it's definite fraud in general in the freight world has just been a hot topic. There is a lot of very smart people out there that are continuing trying to evolve and get access to identity and other freight and other things like that to make money or be able to sell things off the market. And so a couple of the things that we talked about, especially on our freight fraud index webinar that we did recently, were the top three freight fraud trends that we've seen in Q3. And so the first one I always like to kind of touch on is our compromised inboxes. So that has been a hot topic in 2025 in general, but in 2020, or I'm sorry, in Q3, we saw a 23% increase quarter over quarter in compromised inbox threat. And basically what that means is you have bad guys that are getting into your actually inbox. And so they're intercepting that email inside of the inbox. And so when you are sending rate confirmations or sensitive information through your email to a carrier's email, they're getting that information and going to pick up the load or giving it to somebody else and double brokering it or whatever the case may be. And so, we recently released earlier this year our secure Raycon product to help you guys minimize that threat as much as possible. So that is one that has been on the top of mind the rest of the whole year, but quarter over quarter, we've seen a huge growth in that. The second one is the sold MCs and ownership changes. This is also one that has been consistent in 2025 with the market not being in a great spot in general. People are trying to figure out ways to get access to work with carriers that are going out of business or maybe struggling to get ownership of their company and what everything that comes along with that. And so a lot of times they'll do this like buy sell trade type thing over the internet, over different websites, and say, hey, give me your MC, give me your phone number, give me all the login information to platforms like Highway, and you'll get a verification code. Give me that verification code. Don't share anything with the FMCSA until I get everything up and running. And ultimately, what the carrier is doing is they're creating identity theft on themselves in that regard. And so there are a lot of things that to pay attention to when you see an alert, especially inside of Highway around change of ownership or sold MCs, is that should be a red flag until proven that it's legit. And so paying attention to unfamiliar behavior, paying attention to insurance changes that are not like that carrier, or moving and taking freight in areas that they don't typically run. Those are things to pay attention to and like go through before you actually give that carrier freight. And the last thing that we have seen, especially in the third quarter, is direct thefts. I think this is definitely one that's been happening more frequently as well. And I think some of this is also due to market changes. And when markets are changing, they have to get their hands on it somehow. And with short amount of time and window of opportunity that these carriers have to act with a non-domicile crackdown that's happening, the English proficiency exam testing that's going on as well. Like they're knowing their time is short, and so they're trying to act in any way that they can to be able to get their hands on freight, to be able to make money and things like that. So those are the top three freight fraud trends that we saw in Q3, but we've also seen it throughout the entire year this year as well.
I believe it. I mean, we hear about this from so many media outlets and so many different avenues and formats. Jessica Hibden, you're the compliance person at OpenRoad. So what have you been seeing, let's just say over the last year or so, just with being able to use Highway and being able to use it inside Revenova, what's it been like for you?
Reiterating exactly what Jessica Hale said, there's a lot of email spoofing. There's a lot of MC ownership changes, which is resulting in a lot of fraud that we're seeing out there. I think with the integration of Highway into Revenova has helped us also see a lot of those insights. It's given us insights into the real-time on-the-road issues, such as the fraud out there today. So we're definitely seeing that. Evolving around the fraud as far as the different ways in, as far as the email spoofing, shared VIN numbers, and ownership is really a big thing out there as well. Just as she said, with the different changes and a carrier's just regular patterns, we see a lot of the insurances, VIN numbers being purchased and sold along with those MC ownership changes. And so that's kind of what we're seeing a lot out there that are evolving around that fraud in there.
And is this something that you are using just every single day and just, from 8 to 5? What's the usage around it for you?
She doesn't get
Yeah,
that time off. She works longer than that. But yes.
24/7. Yep, exactly. So we're living in those databases 24/7, and we're using those tools and those insights to help us monitor even carriers that we use every day, and looking into any changes that might be indicators of theft or fraud in those cases as well.
And Jeff, how does this fit into the day-to-day workflow? I mean, even if someone did have those hours off, they were only working 8 to 5. What does
Yeah.
that kind of daily workflow look like for you at OpenRoad?
Well, we have an integration with Highway where so Revenova has a built integration to Highway as well out of the box. We actually have an integration with Highway that they kind of built before Revenova had built it. So there's kind of differences between them and what you can do or provide. But I think the main thing is that you have a lot of flexibility between each system, that Revenova being on Salesforce, Highway having a lot of their stuff built with APIs. So you have a lot of flexibility to do really whatever you want as long as you got the chops for it. But for us, Highway is a repository of so much information that we've been kind of selective in the main points that we want to show to our users in Revenova. And with that integration, we are getting the things that we deem most important and the highlights. And then when we need people to be able to dig further, we just have a direct link that will take them to that carrier's page in the Highway system. So everyone's model is going to be a little different of what they want to highlight and present to their people. I know as a kind of working on integrations, usually the goal for my users in Revenova is I don't want them to have to be burdened by going to a million different systems. You want everything centralized to make it easy. So like I was saying, Highway has so much information. It's not really practical to stuff all of that into Revenova. You can try and you can do it, but there's a certain balance there where we made a decision to go, at this point, this is where we can investigate and go to Highway. Highway is super slick. It's clean. I know I'm sounding very salesy here, but it's true. Like it is intuitive and easy for people to use. And we have found our users to be okay with being able to go to another system and get those further details. And they're presented in such a way that it's easy for them to do. And they're actually, I think we're getting more responsibility, ownership of people actually being interested in those things than we have with prior systems because it's that easy to use. Other systems, I won't name names, it may have been a little harder, but we've seen better success in that way.
Absolutely.
So once this integration was set up, what did you or once you started using Highway alongside inside Revenova, what changed, if anything, or like what have been the results? Yeah, let's just start with what changed, I guess.
I'll start with that. I'll say one other piece. Like, so we were very interested in the carrier onboarding process, and Highway, I would say, has some higher barriers, or maybe barriers isn't the right word, but it's like you got to go through some verification steps that we knew would be some obstacles for some carriers, but we are happier about too. For your identification, your email and pins and whatever else, right? But that's just the onboarding part. But the other part we've been really happy about with our integration is another piece that Highway has called load lock. And so they can actually have information about our loads and tell us in real time and kind of tell us, we know that this carrier has 2 trucks, 2 vehicles, and their load utilization that they've been assigned to 10 loads in the past 2 days. And so we can see in real time that something looks weird here. How could they be assigned to our load when they've said they've been on 2 other loads with only 2 other trucks? So that integration, not only for us as a onboarding, there's a monitoring piece there as well that happens in the life cycle of load, that now you've got the load happening, that it's catching other things. And that integration between the 2 systems with our load information allows that to happen. So I think we've been very happy or impressed by that next vector of trying to detect these things and have some suspicion of something looks off here. We need to investigate some more.
Jessica Hibden, is there anything you want to add to that?
Absolutely. As Jeff stated, that particular feature of the load lock has been huge for us, and it's definitely changed the way that we're booking loads and the way that we're building that relationship with our carriers. We're seeing a lot of even the load lock alerts are telling us that the emails are possibly compromised, or as he said, that there's only 2 trucks, but the carrier's booked on 4 loads. And it's given us a lot of insights as far as that goes, or even out of range issues. If the carrier has an ELD pinging that's X miles away from your shipper or receiver, and they just simply wouldn't make it in time for pickup. So those are the types of insights that we're able to see in real time. And it's definitely changed the way that we're booking, the way we're booking here. And again, with the relationship with our carriers as well, that's really the carriers that are true and good and doing what they're supposed to. They are happy with highway. They're excited. They're seeing more loads for themselves because they're able to prove their credibility as well. So we're seeing a lot of changes to help us mold our freight and how we're booking it as well.
That's awesome. I've seen a few hands come up in the little participants tab. If you have questions, throw them in the Q&A, and we will get to them as soon as we can. But Jessica Hale, I wanted to come back to you. I know we started with you. I want to come back to you now. Um, what are some of the most effective fraud prevention habits that brokers should be thinking about or considering if they haven't started those things already? And I mean, at this point, hopefully they have some sort of fraud prevention tactic in mind or strategy.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question because I think fraud prevention is an entire company goal. That should be something that everybody in the company is focused on, from the top all the way down to the floor level brokers that are the ones talking to carriers every single day. Because if we aren't as a company working together, um, it's going to seep in. And so some of the things that you guys can do on a daily basis is verifying phone numbers and emails inside of Highway. If you get an email response from a carrier asking for a load, it's always good to pick up the phone and do an outbound call to a verified phone number of that company. Make sure that the person is with that company. Make sure that it's not somebody utilizing um, their identity to try to get access to your freight. And so just doing an extra layer of verification inside of Highway before sending over.
Oh, I think Jessica Hale might have just frozen. So we're as soon as she comes back, we're gonna get back to that answer. But I want to come back to you, Jeff and Jessica. I mean, when you first started working with Highway, because you've been a Revenova customer for quite a long time. When you first started working with Highway, how quickly was it to kind of get everything kind of mapped together, and being able to pick and choose the different data points that you wanted to feed straight into the TMS?
That I'll say for us, I'd say it took about a month, but that was not necessarily, you know, Highway's fault or doing. We have a lot of custom things that we wanted or we're doing on our own. And a lot of it also depends, as any person kind of usually doing integrations probably knows, some of it depends on your data integrity. And maybe it's time to clean up the cobwebs and go through your list of carriers and how you're going to port them over to the Highway system and how you want to monitor them. Maybe you're coming from a system that now Highway has more stringent rules or different things you can apply as opposed to your other system, the way you're monitoring them. So now you have to kind of carefully weigh how you're going to do that with Highway's system. So you can plug and play with a lot of things, but again, going back to the great thing about Revenova being able to really customize to your liking, now it just means you've got to see how that fits with whatever out of box integration that either Highway built to, to the common, what's the common level for any Revenova customer versus your own custom stuff. So that's where it can get a little tricky, and your user mileage will vary quite a bit of what you might need to adapt for what you've customized. But for us, I'd say it took about a month. So in the grand scheme of things, your carrier base being, the lifeblood of our company, a big portion of it, you don't take that lightly. So that was actually pretty quick, I would say, because we were crossing a lot of T's, dotting a lot of I's. Don't want to mess that up. It's like, oh, all of our carriers are blocked because we applied some rule incorrectly. That's not
Oops.
good. Yeah, it's happened.
I believe. I mean, the testing part of it is so important. And to your point, the data integrity, making sure that everything is flowing properly and is being read properly by both systems.
Mhm.
Jessica, as you know, kind of the someone who's using it 24/7, right? I mean, has there been anything in the past year that you've been like, wow, like thank God we had this. Like this is, you can point directly to this integration or, as a result that helped you and your team.
Absolutely. So something that's been significant for the onboarding process is being able to see the in highway, the carrier, you can see their entire onboarding process. So if they're stuck on a certain questionnaire or on their certificate of insurance section, we're able to see that in real time and be able to assist in getting that carrier completed and onboarded. Um, Once that process is done in highway and they submit their application, it's seconds and it pops over into Revenova. So in the past, we've had to wait around and try to figure out what issues the carrier's having with their onboarding, how come they're not showing up in our system and things like that. So that's been a significant change for us, is to be able to see the onboarding process and have the carrier right over into Revenova almost instantly.
That's awesome. Jessica Hale, you are back.
I
So
am so sorry. I have no idea what happened. My
that's all
Wi-Fi shut
right.
out.
So let me re-ask the question and we can kind of jump back into it a little bit. What are some of the most effective fraud prevention habits that brokers should build? And you were starting with saying that this should be a company-wide initiative and strategy, not just one person on the compliance team and just let them go for broke. So continue with what you were saying.
Yes, no, absolutely. I think a lot of times, and me myself, I worked in a brokerage. And so there is this always like healthy tension between compliance and operations. And I think it's necessary. You need to have that tension to make sure that you guys are keeping your freight safe, keeping your customers' freight safe. And so that's why if everybody is on the same page when it comes to fighting fraud and making sure you're utilizing the right carriers, it makes everything just a little bit better. And it's not this internal battle. And so I'm not sure if I cut off before or after this, but verifying phone numbers. And if you get an inbound email, making sure that you are calling the outbound call to the verified phone number of that carrier that reached out, and sending secure rate confirmations through a platform that makes somebody ask, which highway ask the carrier to log in. And that to get logged in, you have to be a verified user. You have to be able to verify yourself. And so you wouldn't send bank information or sensitive information to somebody just through an email, which is why we have portals and have all the security measures around health and around banking. It should be the same thing when it comes to your freight, when you're sending dollar amounts and addresses and pickup numbers and things like that through email. Um, and monitoring unusual behavior. I think that's something that I mentioned a little bit earlier when it came to sold MCs. But if a carrier is calling you and asking for a load that's picking up in California, but they clearly have never been to California, you can view that inside of Highway. Maybe that's a red flag that you should probably consider before just booking the carrier on that load. If there is insurance lapse, if there is a bunch of different types of insights inside of Highway. Those things are just give you a pause or a red flag and allow you to kind of dig in deeper, confirm who you're talking to before you send them any information that could result into a stolen load. Um, and I guess the last thing here is like report suspicious activity, whether to your compliance team, to Highway. If you see something, say something. It's much rather to be safe than sorry in some of these situations. If you just take one extra step to verify a few things, um, you could save yourself a lot of headache in the long run when it comes to a potential stolen load or a claim or chasing a carrier that isn't answering the phone. And so just taking an extra layer of security and safety, an extra step can result into a lot of good in the future.
Awesome. No, I'm glad you came back for the full answer there. That was great. One last thing I wanted to ask Jessica and Jeff, since you have been using this integration, um, I mean, have you seen your fraud detection go up, go down? I mean, what do you have any numbers that you'd be able to kind of share over the last, year or so, whatever, kind of pick your time frame, um, and how this integration has helped OpenRoad?
I'll let Jessica answer that because I think she has those more readily available than I do.
I will say I don't have a particular number set or percentage of that. But with the increase of the industry overall, the increase in fraud in the industry overall, I will say with the integration of Highway and Revenova, our percentages of claims and fraud has dropped. Um, our claims right now are under 1%, so that's pretty significant. And then as far as a percentage for the overall fraud in the industry, I don't have an exact number on that, but I can definitely look at the quarters and the strategic cargo thefts and the claims that have been reported, and our number has dropped significantly.
Awesome.
And
We've
I
only
sh
got a couple minutes here. Some of the questions that came in are a bit on the technical side, so we'll probably answer those offline. Um, but I guess one of the questions that we can ask here, as far as setting up process turnaround, I'm sorry, has your setup process turnaround time, you know, uh, how has it changed since integrating with Highway?
the onboarding,
Yes.
as I assume what they're talking about, I would
Yes.
say it's improved. And that's because for us using the highway integration to Revenova, as soon as the carriers finish the application, they're pushed over into Revenova right away. But the other part is if the carrier has signed up in highway before, but maybe they haven't signed up with us. Highway, I don't know what percent, but I'm just going to make up a number. Highway knows a lot of information about that carrier. And they say, hey, we know 90% of this information about you already. You just need to answer these couple custom questions that OpenRoad has. You need to sign their carrier agreement contract, and you're done. So they reuse a lot of those same things to make that sign up process even faster. Um, and then they also, even if a carrier is not in the highway system, highway leverages a lot of public information they already know about the carrier to say, like, hey, we don't actually have to have you fill all of this in. We've been very happy with that onboarding process. Obviously, the one thing where carriers may get tripped up a little more is if they have to provide more verification on who they are, their email domain, and sending a verification code to someone at that. So you may get some complaints there from time to time. But what we found is those are actually screening the people we don't want. And it's happening for a reason. So yes, there could be a little more there, but it's doing what it's supposed to do. So I'd say overall, we've been very happy with the onboarding process and carriers getting through that application very quickly, not a hindrance. Sometimes figuring out how to get that verification email, whatever else, is still, it can be take a little time or be a little harder to figure out right away. But other than that, it's pretty efficient and quickly into Revenova.
Awesome. Well, we've got like a minute left here. So any closing thoughts, Jessica and Jeff, from the Open Road side, anything you wanted to share, kind of close us out here?
Me, I'd say aside from all the tools that we have at our fingertips, something big for me that always stands out is trust your judgment. Make that verification call, get that feel for the person on the other phone, and if you have something that you're questioning, look into it. Verify, and trust your judgment.
Sweet. Jessica Hale, any closing statements here?
I guess the last thing I'll say is getting starting at the very beginning with carriers and making sure that they are who they say they are, and going through the onboarding process is the very first step. And the continuation of always verifying and monitoring your carriers, whether they're on the load or whether they're not on the load. Things change throughout the year, day to day, month to month. And so don't trust that, or don't just look at the initial aspect of it. It's always going to be evolving. And so continue to utilize the tools in front of you and make sure that you're never going to be reactive and you're always being proactive in those approaches. And you should be in a lot better spot than if you were to be reactive.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Jessica Hibden, Jeff Meyer from OpenRoad Global, and Jessica Hale, VP of Customer Success at Highway. Thank you for doing this with us today. I'm Mike Marut on the Revenova side, running our marketing, and really excited to have had this conversation today about fighting fraud from inside the TMS, talking through this integration and giving some of our customers kind of best practices and advice and tips. So thank you very much. We are recording this session today, so we will be sure to share it. If you are a customer of Revenova, you'll be getting an email from our marketing team. If you're a customer of Highway, you'll be getting in contact. You'll be in contact with customer success, as well as Open Road. We also have a survey at the end of this. If you want to talk to Open Road or talk to Highway, talk to Revenova about this integration, we'd be happy to talk to you about it. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today, and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.